This is my friend John and his husband Brian. John is in Italy for the next 2 weeks, so it's okay to hate John right now. Lucky dog. Just kidding. Hope he's having a good time. John is a member of the Community Players, Rhode Island's oldest community theater, and I recommend checking them out if you're in the area and you're looking for something fun to do. John messaged me and asked me if I could make him a personalized puppy dog bowl stand for his mom's dogs, Sammy and Ollie, and of course I said yes. So off to the shop we go. I have some leftover 2x material and some leftover baseball material from the dining room project. I think the cat knows I'm making something for dogs. He suspects something's up. I cut down the 2x material into manageable pieces, and I am cutting it down for the legs. 2x is usually 1.5 inches wide, so to make square legs, I am ripping them down to 1.5 inches. I was going to cheat and just use a little piece as a measuring device, but my fence was being stubborn. A few love taps, and we're ready to go. Once the legs are cut, it's time to cut everything to finish length over the chop saw. The height of the dishes was kind of important. They need to be high enough, but not too high, or I would end up building a platform for the dog to stand on to drink and eat. I decided 10 inches was a pretty fair height, and I think we should be good with that. This here is when I noticed the construction material had a warp in. Well, that's no good. So, plan B. I picked up some edge glued pieces from a local hardware store and decided these would work well for the tops. I cut it directly in half, making the width 18 inches overall, and we were able to get two pieces. I then cut them down to 10 inches in depth, which would work well, making sure to remove the edge pieces I did not want. There were some ugly knots I wanted to get rid of, and now seemed like a good time to get rid of them. After this, it was time to do some math. I wanted a half-inch overhang from the skirt all the way around, so I marked all of that off and drew lines so I knew exactly where I would go and knew how much room I had left to play with. I then marked all the leg placement, and after that, marked where the back side of the skirt was going to be, and to make sure to leave enough room for the hanging puppy name tag that would come later. With the bowls taking up a majority of the real estate, I wanted to make sure there was enough room for all of the pieces and nothing was going to bump up against something. Next, I drew out precisely where the bowls were going to be. As you can see, the bowls have a lip and a taper that I'm going to need to consider. Now some fun math. I needed to find the center of the circle. There are a lot of methods for this, but I like the chord method. Basically, you draw three lines connecting 2 points of the edge and mark the halfway point. For this, I decided 6-inch lines and marking the 3-inch point because it's easy math. You can really do any three line lengths you like, but just worked out to be pretty easy at 6 inches. You then draw a 90-degree line from the center of the lines you drew. If you don't have an ugly, rusty framing square like this that was gifted to you by your dad or grandfather, are you really a woodworker? Where the lines intersect is the center of your circle. I measured the lip and overshot a 16th of an inch to allow for the wood to contract and expand based on the weather and the puppy licking messes. Next was to repeat that same process on the other side. Once your board looks like something to summon demons, you're all set. Kidding, but it does kind of look a little weird. I used a jigsaw, and yeah, I could have used a flush bit on the router and a circle cutting jig, which I made a while ago, but this edge will never be seen, so it doesn't have to be perfect. After drilling some pilot holes, it was time to get jiggy with it. Because of the jigsaw. I'll see myself out. With the holes cut out and the bowl sitting pretty like some canine serving platter, it was time to get to assembling the pieces. But first, a little Java energy break and to grab my glasses because I'm getting old and my eyes are crapping out on me. At least they're built in safety wear. With all the pieces complete, it was time to figure out how I'm going to assemble them. Ultimately, I settled on pocket screws. The dog's dish isn't carrying a large amount of weight, so should do just fine. So after drilling holes and drilling more holes and then a few more holes, I really thought this was going to go on forever. It was finally time to start putting everything together. I started with the back sides, adding them to the legs and using a half-inch depth guide from the set I 3D printed to make sure everything was where it was supposed to be. I had to make sure it was flat and good to go. After that, I started on the sides. Then the next thing I know, I had to add the backs in, and before I knew it, I had something that resembled a frame. Now it was time to paint them before finishing the assembly. Based on the pick, I decided on a simple white base. I know I'm a sloppy painter, but I cleaned up my mess and I secretly switched to an HVLP sprayer for the last coat. There is no video evidence of that, and that was done intentionally. After that, it was time to stain the tops. I decided to try this Minwax one coat, which was a total lie. I had to put on several coats. Jerks. After all of that dried, it was time for the final assembly and finishing touches. I added the tops, again leaving that half space around the edge, and used pocket screws to attach. As you can see, I have paint all over me. Have you seen my apron? I'm a mess. Get off my back about it. Now it's time to attach the cup hooks. They attach to the underside of the top and the little wooden pieces for the puppy name tags. Like in my last videos, I ran to the Cricut to make some name tags and some cute little puppy bone vinyl decals. I know, more vinyl decals. You've seen how messy I am. Can you imagine me trying to paint something that's delicate and wordy? After some careful weeding and fighting with some rather stubborn contact paper, it was time to put the names on, making sure it's nice and centered. How cute is that? Okay, let me wrap this up. Let's see how it all turned out. That's it for this time. If you liked the video, go ahead and give me a like and subscribe. Thanks.